Hello, everybody. Welcome to my presentation for this week. I picked as a topic data mining and in more detail the importance of selecting and pre-processing the data. Let's start with selecting the data first. It's the first step in the entire data mining process after we define our problem and what question we might answer. So to me, it's really the foundation of the entire process. I kind of think about it as if I was trying to build a house, I would first pick the location and kind of decide where I want to build. That's kind of defining the problem for me. And then the first step is building that foundation that the house is going to be built on. So everything that's going to hold the entire building in place. So to me, selecting the data is kind of that for the entire data mining process. So what it looks like is we identify sources and data collection options. So a lot of stores, when they want to identify customer trends and behaviors, they keep databases of customer information. So what products they bought, at what times they usually buy stuff, kind of things like that. Obviously, those things are great sources because they're easy to access and they're often already in place. Other times when we try to solve problems, we don't have as much data already available, so we also need to think about what data collection options we might have. A really common one that's often used is surveys. I mean, all of us always get an email after we buy something to give feedback about the service or other things, because that's a way to produce and get data for these companies, which they can then use to answer problems or do something when they analyze it. So, and then obviously also the type of data and its size is important. Sometimes we're restricted in our means and options that we can use to analyze the data. So we need to be careful in what data we select, that it's not too big, that we can actually store it later in the process, and also the types of data we can analyze. Some programs can only analyze numbers. Sometimes if we have videos and text, that's harder to analyze than structured data with an Excel rows and columns. So doing this the right way can, kind of like when we build a building, can really save money and time when we get further down the road in the entire process. Because if our foundation is weak and not proper, everything might collapse or just be not as qualitative as we want it to be. So an example of this, I used it for my discussion board when we had the IBM Cloud. There was a data set that looked at the impacts of weather and temperature and all those metrics on what was being sold within the bakery. So if we want to kind of predict and answer the relationship between weather and sales we have for a bakery in Tampa, obviously we need to look at data for that specific location. It doesn't help me if we look at overall weather trends in Lakeland or Orlando. No, we need to look at Tampa, and sometimes even more in detail what side and location in Tampa. And then if we're trying to predict it in this way, often specific time data is needed and not just average. If I look at a monthly average of temperature, it gives us a general idea, and that can be enough for some questions that we try to answer. But if we want to be very specific and predict hours and time of the day and days, then I need data that reflects that and gives me that information. A daily or monthly average is not going to do that. So we need to be mindful there of what data we really select to use for the entire process. Moving on, this is the second step in the data mining process that's really important to me as well. That's why I choose it. It's pre-processing the data. It's we can say we're cleaning the data we chose to use. We have to identify relevant information. If we get big sets of data, there's going to be a lot of information that for our question and problem we might not need. So we need to leave that out, and we need to look at errors or missing values and how we're going to either fill them or correct them so that the data we then use in the process is accurate and is going to give us the actual results that are truthful and are not going to lead us into the wrong direction. And then on the other side, data integration can be important. If I have a data set here and a data set here, sometimes they need to be integrated to our analysis on it. So we need to combine them. So that's another step of pre-processing the data and preparing it and cleaning it for when we're then actually gonna have the algorithms and everything run through the data to do our analysis. And just like the first step of choosing the data, it's really important to ensure quality and make sure we're not getting wrong results that might lead us into the wrong direction. As an example for this, I play baseball, so I choose this. This is from a player in MLB. As you can see, he was in the league quite young at 19 years old already. So it gives us a great sample size. If I were to look at, and my question is, okay, how can I want to predict what kind of performance I can expect from him in 2026. So I have all these numbers and all these stats, right, that I can use from an analysis, but some of them are just simply not important. So what I did, I marked them out. So one thing, that the team doesn't matter to us anymore. He signed a 13-year contract. He's going to stay with the team he's on right now for the rest of his career. Another aspect, runs very depending on the team around him and how the players around him perform. So it's not really a metric that's going to help me determine success. Same with position. He played one position now for the last, I think, 8 years. That's not going to change anymore. So the rest I can use to give me a prediction. Obviously, age is going to matter. All the other numbers average. Nobody has to know what that means, but it gives me a predictor. But what's really important too is, like, we look in 2020 when COVID hit, they only played 58 games. Obviously, if I just take an average for the games, that's gonna bring down the average quite a bit. And all the numbers across too, because they just played less games. So those things are really important when I'm about to do my analysis, that I put these things in proper weight and in relation to each other. Because obviously the more games you play in a row, the more tired you're going to get. You're going to run slower. Early in the season, you might run faster. All these things wear on your body, and that has to be put into consideration. But I think this is a good example of kind of showing pre-processing data and kind of leaving unimportant information out that we're not going to need for our analysis in this case. So as a conclusion, why are these steps so important? Like I said, for me, both lay the foundation of the entire process. There's a direct impact on quality of the data mining process and the technical systems and programs we're going to need that are also, there's a financial impact. So the better I can choose my data and pre-process it, the easier the analysis is going to be. And the better the analysis is, the better long-term decisions management can make based on my recommendation. Because at the end of the day, after the data mining process, I will use my storytelling skills as a data science to give them an answer to their problem and give them a recommendation based on what I found. And they're often going to use that to make a long-term decision. That includes, a lot of financial means as well. So if I can I'll come back to the to kind of visual of the house. If I can have a good foundation and good pillars, everything after my analysis is gonna be that much more quality and stronger and better, and it's gonna allow me to really um, give them a good picture of what's really happening. So it's really, to me, the foundation and pillars of any successful data mining process. And that's kind of why I choose the two in the first place. Lastly, here are some of the references in case anybody wants to take a look. Thank you for your attention and have a great evening.